The year is 1942. In the continuing war effort against Nazi Germany, the US was rushing new aircraft to British airfields. Our story will focus on one particular brand new P-38F piloted by the 23-year-old Lieutenant Harry L. Smith. July 15th. A squadron of 6 P-38s and 2 B-17s was making their way across the North Atlantic from Maine to Scotland. Outside Iceland, particularly bad weather conditions forced the squadron to turn back. The intended backup landing site on Greenland was closed, however, and with fuel getting low, they couldn't make it to another. This forced the squadron to perform an emergency landing on an ice cap. The slushy summer snow was not exactly an ideal landing surface, and one of the P-38s flipped over on its back on touchdown. The pilot made it out alive and well, as was confirmed by Smith, who circled the crash site before attempting a landing of his own. Cutting the fuel, feathering the props, and without deploying the landing gear, Smith's P-38 slid across the snow without taking major damage, but unable to take off again in its own power. Smith threw the keys into the cockpit and joined the rest of his downed squadron. The 2 B-17s circled the area for another hour or so, before two crash landing on the ice. For 9 days, all 25 men took shelter inside the downed B-17s. They were finally rescued by dogsled on the 24th of July and made their way to the southeast coast of Greenland, where they were picked up by a Coast Guard vessel. Yet, the aircraft were left behind, and almost forgotten by all but the crew who flew them. Fast forward to 1980. Pat Epps and Richard Taylor heard of the story of the downed squadron and decided that their next adventure should be the recovery of one of these aircraft from the icy fields of Greenland. Underestimating the undertaking, they recorded saying, "Our thoughts were that the tails would be sticking out of the snow. We'd sweep off the snow off the wings and shovel them out a little bit, crank the planes up and then fly them home." Of course, it didn't happen. In fact, when the team made it to the supposed crash site, there was no trace of the aircraft. Nothing. It would take several years, expeditions, and advances in subsurface radar system to finally locate the final resting place of the 8 lost aircraft. Over the years, the constant shifting of the ice had carried the airplanes 2 miles from the crash site and buried them beneath 80 meters of solid ice. It seemed like an impossible task to ever recover any of them. And in fact, it took several years and millions of dollars to overcome the engineering challenge and devise the method of tunneling a 4 feet wide hole through the ice and down to the location of the buried aircraft. However, even with the technological challenge overcome, the team continued to suffer setbacks. During one of the first probings, it was discovered that both the B-17s had been completely crushed by the immense weight of the ice, which didn't spell a good omen for the recovery of any of the aircraft. It wasn't until the 50th anniversary of the original crash landing and the hopes that the sturdy airframe of the P-38 would resist the pressure of the ice that the effort would finally pay off. Using a hot water cannon, they dug out the remains of Harry Smith's P-38. The canopy had been crushed by the ice, and the surface showed signs of the immense weight put on it over the years. But all the parts were there. The aircraft was disassembled in the cave and extracted piece by piece, then shipped to America for restoration. After 60 years and millions of dollars, Glacier Girl, as the P-38 was now called, flew once again on October 2002 and took part in various air shows around the country. But what happened to the remaining aircraft? Sadly, the Glacier is drifting towards the sea, and most of the planes are near or in a crevasse field, too dangerous for a salvage mission. However, Ken McBride and Jim Salazar set out in 2016 to recover at least one more of the downed P-38s. The crash site seems to have sunken even further to at least 96 meters when the last radar hit was carried out in 2011, and has probably sunken even more since. Due to technical issues, the recovery efforts were postponed, and the chances of carrying out a successful recovery are getting slimmer by the year. But there is still hope, and we might yet see another P-38 be recovered this year. And this is the end of the story, for now. Hopefully the expedition team can recover one more aircraft from the icy depths and restore to flying conditions. If you want to read the full articles and photo albums, I'll leave links to the sources in the description down below. Hopefully you have enjoyed this story as much as I've enjoyed researching it, and by the way, if you have any other World War II aircraft or tank stories you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. As always lads, my name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.